Right. How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about Gear 4th and why I believe it's not useless anymore. There's a lot to be said about it because obviously people thought, oh, well, Gear 5's here now. You know, no, he's not going to use Gear 4 again or Gear 4th again. And I was one of those people. I thought, all right, we got Gear 5. That's going to stick around for a while. But we haven't seen it since then. And I know we didn't see Gear 4th for a while either. We didn't see it for the entirety of Zell until we saw Tank Man. The way it's talked about, true like conversations with Bonnie, conversations with Jinbei, just general conversations and how people perceive it. It's like this other level of form. The way I can describe it is this is going to be Luffy's monster point, right? So I still think that it has value in the long term. Obviously, Gear 5th is like one of the most powerful forms in the entire verse at the minute. But I think Film Red specifically brought up this idea in my head that Gear 5th will be sort of like, if you read the Dragon Ball Super manga, right? So the Dragon Ball Super manga has this thing in the Goku Black arc where Vegeta, when he's going to attack, he's in Super Saiyan Red form, right? But then when he actually attacks, he switches to Super Saiyan Blue to conserve stamina. And in Film Red, they throw in a little thing where Luffy's in Snake Man and he's attacking Totem Musica, right? He's going, and midway through the attack, he switches to Gear 5th. Now, obviously, that was probably mostly fan service just for people to, get hyped, like, oh my god, Gear 5th's in the movie. Like, I mean, I was in a theater, and one of the lads who was there, he was about a few rows up, he was in the middle. He's obviously an anime only. He was freaking out. He was like, what the hell is that? He was like, what the fuck? And I was like, that shit's hype, you know what I mean? And it was hype to see. Now, the people were going wild. I haven't seen that in an Irish theater ever, man. That's like American stuff. People were going crazy. People weren't doing that for Superhero. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. But it was a really enjoyable experience. But that did bring up an idea for me. And Luffy was doing this with his Gear 4th forms already, right? He was switching in and out between them. Bounce Man and Snake Man specifically again in the fight against Kaido, and that's what I was really loving that. That's probably my favorite chapter of the Luffy Kaido fight before Gear 5th was introduced, because it shows Luffy's advancement in hockey in other ways. Like, he's now learning to manage Gear 4th through constantly switching in and out between them without maintaining it for the full 10 minutes so it can recover a little bit, and then he pops back into it and he's like then he pops out again, you know what I mean? That sort of deal. And I was really liking that sort of format for him, to be honest with you. And I think carrying it into the Gear 5th idea, because we saw what happens to him, specifically when he goes giant form. We don't know if it's just him using Gear 5th in general, or if it's just when he goes giant form. But we saw him turn into like an old man, and he had to basically like run his heartbeat up again to turn him back to normal. Which is interesting, and I'm sure that will be experimented on again. And as I said, that emulates Chopper's Monster Point very well, in my opinion. I think it's fantastic to see, because I feel like that's probably going to be Chopper's main mission, right? All Chopper's research is going to lead up to a way to stop that side effect for Luffy, right? Maybe it causes harm on his heart, and maybe that's how Luffy gets the illness that Roger had, or something more serious, and Chopper has to solve it. But I feel like a way to apprehend this, if Gear 5th has overall side effects, because it is an awakening power, is to switch between Gear 4th and 5th on a dime, right? You can switch between the two, yeah, to use at will. And I think that will be a handy way to see how Luffy manages the fight. And I feel like it would work well, because you could have, like, through a fight, Luffy's like fighting without like any tune powers. Then suddenly, as he's like planning something, he switches to Gear 5th. Then he's like switching back and forth between Gear 5th and Gear 4th. And I think Oda would find a really interesting way to draw that. And I think it would just lead to some fantastic fights. And I think it's perfect against characters like Blackbeard, for example. Because Blackbeard, he is a goofy guy, but he seems a slight more serious than Luffy is. Especially, he's supposed to be like the serious, dark counterpart to Luffy sort of deal. So I feel like having him switch between, regular gear systems and then Gear 5th or something in his awakened sun god form would be really cool to see. And I think Oda would draw that really well. I think he would have like imagine he has the Toon Force thing, so the eyes are going out like this, and then he switches back to Gear 4th and then you shoot back into his head and you see it go back or something. I think Oda would have a lot of fun with that idea, and that's why I think it's a really cool concept. Considering he mentioned some of it in Film Red with that, and they could pull it, be like, look, we showed it off, we showed this could happen, so it's reasonable enough, right? And look, I know, I'm probably talking out of my ass. I do that a lot. That's literally my entire brand here, right? I just talk complete shite.
Well, no shit.
So, but I do really like that idea, especially because, right, we see Oda doesn't really get rid of forms that much. Like even when Gear 5th was around, right? Yeah, Gear 2nd was pretty much obsolete, but he still uses Gear 3rd a lot. He still uses giant punches and shit. Like, Oda doesn't get rid of forms that often, to be honest with you. Yeah, besides Tank Man, that was like a once-off thing. We probably won't see Tank Man again. I'd actually be interested if he, like, iterates on Gear 5th as well. Do we think he's going to do that a little bit? Like, maybe, because Luffy's a creative man and he was only learning how to use it in that Kaido fight. So iterating on Gear 5th and maybe making, like, Snake Man versions of Gear 5th and different things like that. Like, changing his body around. Because what he might do, and here's another thing as well, is that for Gear 5th, for example, we know that when he goes really giant and he goes and stomps down and stuff and maintains his giant form for even a couple of seconds, he turns into an old man, right? So what if a way to counteract that would be to, like, go medium-sized, right? You can maintain a medium-sized version of yourself for a while, or you can maintain, like, a 1.5 times, but you can't go giant form. Like, you can maintain certain sizes, you can maintain longer than others, so he's iterating between them, changing body shape. And I think it'd be really, really interesting, and that combined with Gear 4th and all the training you got with that to maintain a strong hockey force. And as he gets better with Gear 5th, he can maintain Gear 4th for a longer period of time, because Gear 5th is more straining, so it's like weight training for Gear 4th in a sense. So Gear 4th has more utility then in the long run because of Gear 5th, and I think they kind of coincide and coexist together to make each other better forms. I'd be really excited for that. You know what I mean? I think Oda will do a really good job with that, but it's just a small thing I've been thinking about for a while, because I don't know. Because I feel like Gear 5th will be used as that endgame form. I don't think we're going to see it that often from here on out, right? Because I don't think we'll see it in Egghead. There's no one in Egghead in my mind that will make him go Gear 5th, right? Because if we look at the potential opponents here, right? We've got Smoker, Rob Lucci, Kaku, Kuma potentially, and maybe Vegapunk. Vegapunk and Kuma are the only two I think that could make him go Gear 5th, because I don't think, even if Smoker is this SSG character power up I was talking about, like the prototype for the SSG, right? I don't think that he will be that strong. I feel he'll give Luffy a run for his money, but I also think we'll see how Luffy's gotten stronger in his base form through this, and that's who they're going to use Smoker in this, and Luffy might struggle through that, and maybe he won't want to fight Smoker, you know what I mean? And then we'll get a repeat of the Dragon situation. I do think we're going to get I do think we're going to get a very mix of an NS Lobby and Logtown. This is what it seems like to me, right? It seems like Oda's trying to do two things, right? He's emulating NS Lobby with all the Robin stuff going on, Rob Lucci showing up, and all this different stuff. But he's also heavily focused on Logtown, in my opinion, and emulating those sort of things, because he's having it where it's like, it's the beginning of the final saga. So Luffy's on his final island before we breach out into the big wide world of the final saga and the massive shit we're going to get revealed there. And that's why I feel like we're going to get a similar scene to when Dragon shows up in Logtown, which is what I'm really excited for. But that's kind of a bit off topic of the video in the first place. But I do not see a scenario where Luffy uses Gear 5th in this arc, to be honest. And that's why I feel like merging the two forms in a way where it's like he uses both of them, and it sort of messes around with them in an interesting way, I think will lead to some fantastic visual fights. Because for whatever you can say about Kaido, I know a lot of people don't like Kaido now. And hell, I made a video about him being possibly the worst villain, and I talked about my opinions on him and how conflicted I am. I'm thankful the anime might be going somewhere with him, and I'm looking forward to that. But I think the fight itself was really visually enjoyable. The only problem I had with the fight, and this is something I hope like color versions and the anime will fix, I found it a little hard to understand what was going on. Do you know what I mean? Because body parts were over there. But it was fun to read, right? It was really fun to read and really enjoyable. So I feel like Oda will expand on that in a way, using all of the different gears and combining it into an interesting fighting style for Luffy. Do you know what I mean? Because it is supposed to be the most ridiculous power in the world, right? And I don't think... I'm disappointed, and I think I'm going to pull out of it now. And my whole idea of Luffy eventually going gearless ain't going to happen, boys. Once Gear 5th came in, you know, I was like, that's done. That's done, lads. No, that's not me. Not me. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this whole idea of as a sort of merger of a Gear 4th and Gear 5th fighting style, and how interesting it would be to me visually if Luffy was to use that sort of deal, and how Oda would approach it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos from me. And I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.